Like a real deal.
Flow into a wilderness of savage splendor. Deep crevices and canyons carve twisted courses through steep hills. Bleak limestone cliffs soar upward, pockmarked by ancient caves. In this hot, parched, and inhospitable wilderness, men have lived for 9,000 years, drawn by its grandeur and challenge, its isolation and spirituality. Warriors and mystics, outcasts and rebels, they came seeking both refuge and inner knowledge, where an austere Jewish sect built a celibate community 2,000 years ago. Like the people of Kibbutz Almog, these earlier Jews, Essenes, led simple cooperative lives. Unlike their modern-day successors, however, the Essenes were reclusive and solitary. Occupied by study and reflection, they were part of a general messianic expectation, living in restless preparation for the end of days. Their life's passion was the Holy Scriptures, which they studied and copied in shifts round the clock. They wrote down their own wisdom, too, in Hebrew and Aramaic, hymns of thanksgiving, a manual of discipline, the war of the sons of light against the sons of darkness, plans for building a new temple in Jerusalem. But the Essenes, like their contemporaries, the Sadducees, were doomed. The Romans marched inexorably across the lush land of Judea. Through the wilderness they came to subdue these Jewish zealots on their triumphant path to Jerusalem. In the year 70 of the Common Era, in blood and flames, they smashed Jerusalem's great temple. With it fell the Second Jewish Commonwealth. As destruction rolled closer, some Essenes fled to the fortress of Masada, south of Qumran. Others labored to safeguard that which was most precious, their repository of written knowledge. In the year 68, they gathered their scrolls and scaled the towering cliffs above Qumran. In dark, dry caves in the rock face, the Essenes wrapped their priceless scrolls in linen and stashed them in tall jars. Like the prophet Jeremiah before them, they hid their documents in earthen vessels that they may continue many days. These ancient aesthetes probably intended returning for their holy writings once the danger passed. But the Essenes, after flourishing for 200 years, were soon to disappear from history. The well-hidden Qumran writings were lost for 2 millennia. In 1947, a young Bedouin goat herd, exploring the cliffs around Qumran, stumbled across one of the ancient jars in the depths of a cave. The boy quickly discovered that his find was valuable. A Bethlehem dealer named Kando was willing to pay him for the ancient jars and their strong-smelling bundles. As Kando started selling the manuscript fragments, scholars became aware that a momentous discovery had been made. Eliezer Sukanik, professor of archaeology at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, was the first to recognize the antiquity of the Qumran scrolls. These manuscripts are known today as the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the story of how they were discovered and acquired has entered modern folklore. The 700 Essene manuscripts, ultimately yielded by the caves at Qumran, sparked interest in the long-deserted ruins of the ancient settlement below. In 1951, an archaeological excavation was launched. During the 5 years it lasted, archaeologists found jars, pottery shards, and a scroll, identical to those uncovered in the caves above. The people who had lived in Qumran were, without doubt, those who had so painstakingly hidden the scrolls 2,000 years ago. The archaeological dig revealed more. It showed conclusively that Qumran, despite its remoteness, had been a well-equipped and well-organized community in antiquity, the center of the stern Jewish sect described by the first-century historians Josephus and Pliny the Elder as a lonely people, the most extraordinary in the world, living without women, without love, and without money, having only the palm trees for company. The excavations showed that the Essene Center at Qumran had been securely guarded by a defense tower and a northwestern wall. Behind the wall were the community's library and scriptorium, or writing room, facing east to take advantage of the morning light. Then came the long room known as the refectory, with its adjoining pantry. The pottery workshop, where the Essenes had fashioned the tall jars which protected the Dead Sea Scrolls, was found complete with the remains of 2 kilns, a basin for working clay, and a potter's wheel. Water cisterns and purification baths were uncovered, fed by an intricate aqueduct carrying rainwater from the Judean hills. Water was essential to the Essenes, not only for the life of the body, but also for that of the soul. Cleanliness was written. The ancient scribes are the same as those in use today. The brick and plaster found at Qumran once formed hollow tables, long enough to spread out scrolls for checking, repairing, and sewing together. Smaller adjacent rooms were probably used for processing and storing the scrolls. Scratched onto this shard uncovered at Qumran are examples of the Hebrew script used in the Dead Sea Scrolls, so similar to the alphabet used today that any Israeli child can read it without difficulty. The settlement of Qumran, surmise archaeologists, was the community center, and surrounding caves and shelters served as living quarters. This cave on the southern edge of the Qumran outcrop is cut from the marl and was inhabited in antiquity. Between Qumran and the Dead Sea are some 1,000 graves, each marked by an oval-shaped heap of stones. We know a great deal about the beliefs and lifestyle of the Essenes, and not only from these artifacts. Among the scrolls they left is their manual of discipline, closely written on 5 much-used sheets. The manual gives us an inside look at Jewish life during the Second Temple period, and how and why the Essenes chose to live in the desert. It describes their unbending discipline and rules, drawing a picture of a group of people who gave all moral and material possessions to the community. The Essenes believed in the imminent coming of the kingdom of heaven. A scroll found at Qumran, The Wars of the Sons of Light Against the Sons of Darkness, is the story of this messianic expectation. The battle between good and evil, taken together with the Essene view of their leader as a teacher of righteousness, has led scholars to speculate that early Christianity may have been cradled in an environment such as this. Another of the Qumran scrolls describes the rebuilding of the temple in minute detail. It was acquired far later than the others, in 1967, the year Jerusalem was reunited. Most of the 700 manuscripts found in the Qumran caves are written in ink on the hairy side of pieces of treated leather. The script is neat and readable, mistakes are carefully corrected, and the sheets sewn into scrolls with flaxen threads. Dampness and vermin have affected all the scrolls. Some are so badly damaged that they can be read only with special technology. The 2 scrolls written on beaten copper had to be cut into strips to be read, and some manuscripts are unrestorable. But many are magnificently preserved. and they have had a revolutionary impact on biblical, historical, and theological scholarship. Every book of the Hebrew Bible, other than that of Esther, is represented in the Qumran finds, in copies dating from 100 years before the Common Era, which is at least 1,000 years older than any Bible texts known before. The Dead Sea Scrolls tell us not only that the Bible has come down to us accurately, shedding light on the codification of the Scriptures, they are also among very few surviving Jewish sources, describing daily ritual and lifestyle in Second Temple times. Scholars everywhere agree that these ancient scrolls are genuine and could be among the greatest archaeological discoveries ever made. They were acquired for Israel by Professor Sukenik at the moment that the state was reborn. For Sukenik's son, archaeologist Yigael Yadin, the discovery of the scrolls had overwhelming symbolism. He later wrote, "It's as if these manuscripts have been waiting in caves for 2,000 years, ever since the destruction of Israel's independence, until the people of Israel regained their freedom. These very scrolls were read and studied by our forefathers in the time of the Second Temple. The scrolls are as stirring for Christians as for Jews," believed Yadin. He wrote, "Just as a Christian reader must be excited by the manuscript of a sect who may have known and influenced early Christians, so a Jew finds nothing more deeply moving than manuscripts written by the people of the book, in the land of the book, more than 2,000 years ago." Sections from the 7 major scrolls are on public display today in a specially constructed pavilion at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. The building, which opened in 1964, is designed to tell a story. Its dome is a white dome, symbolizing the Essene preoccupation with the struggle of darkness and light. The pavilion's subterranean design both suggests the caves of Qumran, while at the same time helps maintain the constant humidity and temperature essential for preserving the fragile documents. Out in the wilderness of Judea, the people of Kibbutz Almog cherish exact replicas of the precious scrolls. The scholar, Dr. Emmanuel Wieder, spent 10 years copying them by hand to make the text accessible to all comers. Beneath the Qumran cliffs and next to the ancient settlement, the kibbutz farmers tend their fields and build their community, heirs to ancestors who dreamed of a perfect world and wondered about the whole span of human experience.
I noticed some of these hanging on the top wall. All of them. They're the only difference you have with the Hebrew from today. The real writing on the line, and then in this line the hinder, the words, whatever's on the line.
Did you notice that? The letters came down from the wall.
Look, this is a photocopy of the Isaiah scroll. Yeah, the first book of Isaiah, an original scroll in line. We put this here, this is so the people that this is the answer. This is how the people you can check it was not cheating.
Contain archaeology. So